Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to Coruscant Radio Underground. I'm Andrew, and I'm here with Marisha,
How's
or
it going?
she's there with Marisha. She's here, but she's not here where she usually is.
True. It's true.
Hmm. All right, so this is different, but we'll make it work. So we're here to talk about the Mandalorian season 3, episode 3, or chapter 19, the convert.
It's true.
A little different format wise.
Hmm.
But I did enjoy the episode a lot. But let's talk about the opening. Basically, we had a really long lead into the title card
Yeah.
that serves as basically the first portion of this story. Mando's story in this, I do appreciate that they gave us something Mandalorian, and because they could have just done the whole episode as this middle portion. This middle portion is an episode.
Yeah, for sure.
And they tacked some stuff on the beginning and the end that does push um the
Um,
Mandalorian story forward.
hmm.
I don't know. I almost feel like they could have done that whole thing at the beginning or that whole thing at the end of the episode.
Right.
It might have worked best if they had opened up on the Coruscant stuff, done that story, and then finished with the picked back up with the Mandalorian. Because I do feel like this stuff, I think part of the thing is this middle portion, and we're going to get it. This is spoiler. This is our spoiler review, so we will get into the details of this in a second. But I feel like that middle portion. Well, I don't feel like I know. It's the way they told the story. It takes place across weeks, at least weeks,
Hmm.
and so you've got two parts of the story, but they're not really in sync with one another.
Right. Yeah.
So presumably, this all took place in the weeks leading up to where the Mandalorian is right now. This is
Hmm.
kind of like, let's catch up on this part of the story. And
Right.
so I kind of feel like if they had opened up the story, done that portion, and then led up to where that part of the story now has caught up, and we can come back to the Mandalorian.
Hmm.
I think because I don't have a problem with it. I actually don't have a problem with the episode, the way they did it, but it seems to be the biggest complaint.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely really different. Like, there's a lot of talk about, oh, longest season of The Mandalorian ever. And it kind of felt like two parts of a Mandalorian episode and then an episode of something else in the middle. Which I didn't have any objections to the thing in the middle, especially since it deals with a character that we've interacted with on The Mandalorian before.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was really different. It was a really long episode for The Mandalorian, which in some ways I'm a little surprised that they chose to not just do it as, I guess they didn't want to have an entire episode of The Mandalorian that wasn't about the main character. So I guess that's why they just chose to make it one long episode. Because I definitely felt like it probably lent itself a little better to being two different episodes.
Yeah. Well, it's two different stories packed into one episode.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm kind of saying if you had done this main story of this episode at the beginning and then come back to the Mandalorian and done that whole thing picking up at the mines all the
Mm-hmm.
way through where that ends
Right.
as one chunk, I think would have been more digestible as a single episode instead of
Right.
bookending it.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me. Like,
No,
I did.
and like I said, it didn't bother me. I just felt like I should have, I felt like it was something worth addressing since it
Mhm.
seems to be something a lot of people really didn't like.
Yeah. So what did you think of the Pershing storyline? It was something completely different than we've done Mandalorian before. So what did you think of it?
I thought it was really good. I mean, there's a lot of Star Wars. I feel like one of the things that the sequel trilogy missed out on was delving into the politics of Star Wars. The originals did a little. The prequels, some of the best parts of the prequels, where they kind of we kind of see the politics that have destroyed the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there are things I like and things I don't. We do get one of our best looks at Coruscant, really, in anything. Uh, having having Pershing talk about cloning in the place where we previously saw Palpatine talk about cheating death
Right.
is that's really, really great. Like that's perfect.
Yeah, it's good storytelling.
Um, it's so here's what I don't like, and this is what they did. This is sort of the repercussions of the sequel trilogy. Um, I don't like that the New Republic is so flawed, right? The New Republic's got a lot. They didn't fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same people have been in power in the Republic, the Empire,
Mm-hmm.
and now the same people are back in charge. Are back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like the better solution, because one of the things they've done so far, like we see X-wing pilots, and even though I love the character, we see X-wing pilots out patrolling the Outer Rim, just harassing people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this isn't better. Like
Right.
the New Republic should be focused on bigger things right now. But what the sequel trilogy did was basically said there's a 30-year gap between the movie trilogies. The New Republic is going to fail. And so basically left everyone in that 30-year lurch to write a flawed version of the New Republic, a flawed government. They have to be flawed because they're going to fail so quickly.
Right. I mean, 30 years is not a long time.
Right. So I don't love that that's where it is. I do think it's consistent. I do think the way they're writing the New Republic is consistent with what has to happen.
Mm-hmm. It almost feels like, and it is fairly consistent with, like you look at, I think probably our best parallel for this is going to be Russia and the Soviet Union, right? You've got the opulence of the imperial Russian um, era, and the reactionary Bolshevik revolution, which creates its own, reign of terror, basically. And whenever they finally knock the wall down, it finally all comes crashing down. It is replaced by something really fragile, and you know and I think that it's believable, but
I
it's a shame.
It's a shame, and the shame is that it's sort of an erasure of the legacy of our legacy characters in a way. That's I'm not trying to get down on the sequel trilogy. I know there's a lot of people that love them, and but it does, as someone who grew up on the now erased Legends stories,
Hmm.
it's like you took, because the Legends made up 90% of the star 99% of all Star Wars material.
Hmm.
You had the three movies, and then you had all these books that made up way more material than those three movies.
Hmm.
We just erased it all. Like that was sort of our, for a lot of Star Wars fans, that was our mythology for a long time.
Hmm.
And this is another sort of erasure of that. Um, and it is what it is. I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, they're gonna go back. They're gonna erase the sequel trilogy. They're not. It's what we have. Like it or not, I will take the things that I like from it and I'll move on, because it's part of the story now. Um, so that's our lore, and this flawed New Republic is part of our lore. It leads me to wonder what comes after. When what comes after the sequel trilogy, after the fall of the First Order. Um, and what I hope it is not another confederation of galaxies. It's the
Hmm.
galaxies are more regionalized and more standing on their own.
Hmm.
That's what I want to see. I think that's the only place to take it somewhere new and different now.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's where we're going, because I think we're on our way to seeing Mandalore become a major player
Mm-hmm.
in the galaxy, which is great. That is a pull from Legends.
Right.
Now Pershing's story. So Pershing's story is it's interesting. Of course, these are all echoes of Operation Paperclip, the real
Right.
world experiment with when after World War II, the U.S. starts bringing in all these
Nazis.
former Nazi scientists. I mean, not a few. I mean, it's like almost 2,000 of them.
And not just the peons who were just following orders.
No, the big dogs, the ones that knew what was happening. Like, it was sketchy. It was something our government did because they saw it as a way to rapidly advance our technology, especially as we entered the space race and things like that. um it was largely those scientists that got us to the moon
Mm-hmm.
first.
Right.
So, you can argue the merits of it, but the thing is, you still brought in bad people and just
Mm-hmm.
let them off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the grand scheme of this, Pershing, although he didn't set out to be a bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
is a bad guy. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh well, my research was used for bad things, but you kept doing that research after you knew what it was being used for.
Yeah.
He winds up, we're obviously hurtling towards um the sequel trilogy with all this talk of cloning. I know you're not up on the Bad Batch. I've still got a couple episodes to catch up on as well, but it's doing the same thing. We're doing the cloning stuff over there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're rapidly hurtling forward in this idea of a clone emperor, and all these things. We're also, the other really interesting thing though is Filoni likes to pull in legend stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be a little vague with it and just sort of lay out what the sequel trilogy did, in some ways it did lift things from Legends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not totally different. They
Mm-hmm.
did they did pull concepts, ideas, and so we could see some other things involving cloning that are pulled directly from the pages of um of Legends, because we're still at best 20 years away. At closest, we're still a little over 20 years away from the sequels.
Right.
Like, we're way too close to just launch the for the First Order to become an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We can have ideas and hints that they're out there,
Mm-hmm.
but like they can't become the major villain. So um I do think that we're fixing to get a very, very Thrawn heavy story that's going to at least be shades of Timothy Zahn's Heir to
Mm-hmm.
the Empire trilogy.
Yeah.
I could be totally off base, but we got to do something to fill this massive gap. We need a villain, and it can't just be these random warlords. We need a big villain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Although you can argue that even a big villain doesn't work, because the alliance, there are
New Republic.
the New Republic is destroying. We knew it was happening from the books, but they're dismantling their fleet. They're decommissioning the fleet.
Right.
A 90% decommissioning of the fleet, because they've decided they don't need the threat is gone. We don't need a military anymore.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's all very interesting stuff. This opens up a lot of doors. That's why some people didn't like this aside, but now Pershing, I don't know if Pershing is alive at the end of this.
I kind of felt like she was looking to either kill him or completely fry his brain where he doesn't remember, and he's not going to be capable of giving any information out on these projects he worked on.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And so, okay, so we had another thing. We had the first mention of the mind flayer in this episode was in reference to Gideon. Gideon was running large projects that were obviously tied in some way um, to the First Order. So we get one person says, I heard he escaped on the way to his tribunal. And the other says, oh no, they sent him to the mind flayer. And so now we've seen the mind flayer. We've seen what they've done. Like, is it possible? I know you've read some of the books. I know you hadn't read a lot. Are you familiar with Operation Cinder?
Operation Cinder, yeah. That
Operation Cinder is essentially
the game, right?
It's the game. Yeah, it's from the game, and then it's mentioned in some books, but it's essentially a burn it to the ground. You take you take certain pieces, you take them away. So this is the Empire, basically just everybody that's not chosen to go to the outer regions, to the unknown regions, to kind of regroup as the First Order. They're just they're sacrificed. Most of them are sacrificed basically in the Battle of Jakku. I think that this could be part of Operation Cinder. This is a eliminate what remains and we'll regroup as something new. So I think that what is her name? Kane, last name's Kane, right? Elia Kane. I think that she is working for Thrawn. Maybe Gideon. It might still be Gideon. But we have to at least consider the fact that she's a double agent. She's worked her way into the New Republic. She's got a little bit of pull and power, and she's completely sold Pershing out. I think this is part of Operation Cinder. And I think this is her taking pieces off the board.
Yeah.
Pershing's no threat anymore. He can't be a threat if we just eliminate. We don't even have to kill him. We just erase what he knows. What a mind flayer, like what that gives you pictures of is total erasure.
Right.
Because I've seen some people that think that she's somehow trying to twist him back to their side, but I think that she went too far. Like,
no, there was no finesse in what she was doing. She was just jacked it up all the way to 100.
Yeah, so I think Pershing's done. Like, you don't erase someone's mind. If you want this scientist, you don't erase his mind and then retrain him. Uh-oh, I lost Marisha. Marisha. Yeah, but anyway, the idea of the mind flayer is that it's, flay means to strip skin away. So a mind flayer is literally just stripping away everything that makes you you. We'll give Marisha a second here and see if she makes it back into the stream. Her phone probably died. All right. Well, I will just oh, good, she's back. Can't hear you. Say something. No, I definitely can't hear you. Nope, I can't hear you at all. There's no sound coming through. Hey, Nick, glad you were able to join us. We'll get going here again in a minute, presumably, if we get Marisha back. uh back in here. But Nick, what did you overall think about the episode? I know that I didn't. I think I saw that you didn't enjoy the middle portion of this episode. Oh, good. I can hear you now.
There we go. Hooray.
All right. Well, while you
Right.
were doing that, looks like Nick joined us at least for a moment.
Oh,
So, but
yeah. Sorry.
anyway,
And I was trying to get it cleared, and then it did weird things.
so what I was saying was, to flay is literally like the words actually talking about stripping skin.
Right. Yeah.
But it's so a mind flayer is just stripping away everything, your knowledge, everything is stripping away everything that makes you.
Yeah.
Um, so Gideon, we have two options. Is Gideon still out there? Is it Gideon that sent the TIE fighters after Bo-Katan?
Right.
Is it Gideon, or was Gideon sent to the mind flayer as a part of Operation Cinder, a part of taking these pieces off the board?
Right. I mean, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. And like, I feel like this wasn't just a throwaway, and Pershing's gone because like we already didn't know where he was anyway. So I feel like this is going to have to come back to play in our main story here.
Yeah. So I'm curious what they're going to do with Pershing. I'd actually be a little upset at this point if they bring him back and everything's just fine. Like, yeah, it's not the way that's supposed to work. What did you think about Elia Kane?
I mean, just knowing what we knew about her already, I was inclined to think that we shouldn't trust her.
Yeah, no, I mean, she was,
She
she's
was
definitely, well, she was a Gideon loyalist. She's not just some person whose knowledge was misused, like you can argue Pershing's was. Like, she's a believer.
Yeah. And I think that I mean, she's clearly a plant. The question is just a plant for who? Was Gideon the top of the totem pole for her, or was she working for somebody else?
Yeah. Well, presumably after he was captured, she was the highest ranking in that cell. But we don't know what happened. He's essentially a warlord. Like, we're never really told exactly how imperial Gideon is. Is he still loyal, or is he, what is he exactly? Is he just a warlord seeking power for himself, or?
Yeah. I don't know. Begs the question.
So that's reasonable, Nick. I get it. It was definitely different. It felt different than the rest of the show, really. I mean, it's really tonally different from pretty much everything we've done in The Mandalorian in any season.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a departure. I think for better or worse, I think that I don't even know if that was a setup for this show.
Right. I hope it was. Like, I understand the whole interconnected thing, but like, we're going to spend entire episodes of one show setting things up for another show.
Well, I mean, it would be important to learn this about the New Republic and what's going on with the Empire. Like, there's importance to that for the Mandalorian.
Right. It'll just be a question.
But it potentially also really important to several other shows that are being developed, specifically thinking about the Ahsoka series.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. I did enjoy it, but I could see that it is a really different it is a really significant tonal shift. So I could definitely see how it wouldn't be everybody's thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious to see where they're going with the Elia Kane. I mean, she's definitely like still, she's still definitely an Imperial loyalist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and presumably she's just infiltrated this amnesty program. At least at this point, the appearance is that she's there to make sure certain people don't stick around.
Right.
So she's just there to make sure certain people don't make it through the amnesty program.
Right.
Um, so, what did you think about just the look of Coruscant?
And Coruscant looked amazing. We haven't seen Coruscant in a long time. And so that was a really great kind of throwback in a lot of ways, because we saw a lot of it in the prequels. So it was nice to get to see kind of what's happening there now. And it is notably the same with the absence of, the notable absence of a Jedi temple. It's very much what we, saw before.
Yeah. So, yeah, I do agree, Nick. It was very drawn out, and and like I said a minute ago, it doesn't feel like anything we've done in the Mandalorian previously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that the reason it's sort of drawn out the way it is because they're trying to convey this passage of time. It's not short. He's not just
Mm-hmm.
deciding to go do these things on his own overnight.
Mm-hmm.
He's taken weeks or months to get to this point where he's ready to do this.
Right.
He's gone from just being happy to be given amnesty to being kind of upset with the way things are going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so I do think I think that there are other I always come back. I like Edgar Wright. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan. And so I like to come back to Edgar Wright is really good with showing passage of time, a whole day
Mm-hmm.
in seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways they could have shortened this up.
Mm-hmm.
So I do agree it slowed down a lot, but I thought that it gave us a lot of I thought it gave us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How much importance it is to this particular show, I don't know, but it gave us a lot.
Yeah. I'll be
And
interested where it all goes eventually.
and I actually didn't have any issues that I recall with the dialogue. Did you?
Me? No. I mean, it wasn't particularly suave and catchy or anything, but it seemed pretty realistic, just it's not nearly like I feel like the dialogue for the Mandalorian is really top notch because you can't see any faces. The dialogue is the story. And so they didn't really have to rely on that as much in this episode. So I wouldn't say that it's like the dialogue is particularly memorable or anything like that. But it didn't bother me.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't feel like the dialogue was like out of touch with Star Wars in general.
Yeah.
Um, however, I do think it's a great tragedy that Bendu Day is not the middle day of the week.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm aware that the word Bendu long predates what Filoni did with the Bendu.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that worked out that way. But yeah, I mean the Galactic Week is 5 days, and Bendu Day ought to be the one in the middle.
Seems fair.
Um, but is there anything else about this portion of the show that
You know, I didn't hate it. Like I enjoyed watching it, but honestly, just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to say about it.
No, look, when you put it side by side with the bookends to the episode, it's the beginning and the end of this episode are where all the excitement is. We
Yeah.
got to see some really cool stuff that we've heard about before.
Mm,
The mountain peak, the only place you can see the planet. We got to see it up close. That's cool.
mhm.
Um, we kind of got to see what's going on Coruscant, to see that not all that much has changed on Coruscant.
Right.
Um, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting setup. Nick's right. It could have been shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was like I said, I didn't have any like strong objections to it, but most you can say about it really is just to kind of speculate on where it's going from here. So
Actually, I have one complaint about the episode. There was one part that was really stupid
what's that?
when they jump off the train.
Yeah, like come on, physics. Does physics not exist in Star Wars?
Well, I know how fast a lot of these trains in Star Wars are trucking along pretty fast. Now, it
Even just
was it was starting to slow down because it was coming towards the gate, but still, like, I thought that was stupid. It doesn't hurt my feelings or anything. Like, it's fine. It's one little quick moment of that was kind of silly, but
yeah.
you know, it is what it is.
Hmm.
Pershing at least should have come up a little wounded from jumping off a train, though.
I think so. I don't think he's well equipped for those kinds of things in
Well, I
life.
don't even think his glasses came off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That moment was a little goofy. So let's talk about the opening scene, the lead into the title card.
Yeah, it
Um,
was um
okay, let's start. We pick up right where we left off last week at the mines.
right.
What? So Bo-Katan is asking Den if he saw anything down there. She
Mm,
wants to know if he saw what she saw. But what
right,
is her purpose? Like, does she
right,
really want to know if he saw it, or is she just trying to make sure he didn't see it?
right. Or
And
just
then
like, did I dream that? Like, did you see that thing?
right.
Yeah. I feel like that's the obvious question, but it does beg the question of what's she going to do with this information now that she's got it.
Yeah. I agree. We did get a couple of different looks at Mon Calamari in capacities we've never seen them before, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
We also got some really crazy looking droids too.
Hmm.
Um, Specifically the really obnoxious taxi droid that
Yeah.
was actually one of Macquarie's original
Hmm.
designs, which is, we know how much Filoni loves those,
Hmm.
to use those designs when he can. So,
Yeah, for sure.
um, so what do you think about Bo-Katan's reaction to what has happened, to what she saw?
I mean, so far it doesn't seem to have really had any much impact on her,
Well, I
except for
think it's had a lot of impact on her. She's just not vocalizing anything.
nothing that we can see. Like, I mean, I think she still would have gone back to her castle and made her plans there if it hadn't gotten blown up. I think really the main catalyst for things changing is that.
Yeah. Um, so we'll talk about the end of the episode in a second. So we have one of the best dogfights. I would say probably the best we've had in a TV series at this point. Um, what did you think about all that? I mean, the ships look phenomenal.
Fight looked great. So fights in Star Wars are always a good thing. Hey baby, I'm gonna be right back. You're gonna have to talk without me for a second.
Okay.
I'm warning you this time. All right. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. If I can figure.
What?
I said if I can figure out how to get out of here.
I'm gonna put you over here on the side, and you just wave when you come back.
Okay.
Um, so the The fight scene was fantastic. Really, really good. Um, Work on the ships. They look. I mean, it looks like something out of a movie. It doesn't look like something out of a TV show. Bo-Katan's ship, the Gauntlet, is really, really cool. This is one of the first times we've really gotten to see it in action, and it's not as much of a fighter as it is a transport, but it is. It does have weapons capability, but um, the N1, I know some people don't like the N1, but the N1 is just so cool. I would like to see Mando have a bigger ship at some point in addition to the N1, but I really enjoyed what they did with the N1. Now, the destroying of Bo-Katan, no, well, okay, so in the fights, I think what really makes the dogfight stand out, they really did well what George Lucas did. George Lucas always envisioned these dogfights as sort of World War II esque dogfights. And we did that everything from um, the high altitude stall that Din Djarin starts off with into a dive. Let's see. Yeah, I mean it's possible. I don't know. I feel like if you set things up in a middle chapter, I feel like people are going to complain about that too, just like they complained about putting 2 episodes of The Mandalorian in Book of Boba Fett. Are you back, Marisha? Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if having doing shorts like that is really the way they want to go with that. But it is a thought for sure. Um, but I felt like they did a really, really good job with making the fight scene, the dog fight, feel a lot like a World War II style dogfight. Um, Now, as far as I've seen a lot of people say that it didn't make sense for them to bomb Bo Katan's castle, which I think that made complete and total sense. She has been a huge thorn in the side of the Imperial remnants. We don't know how many ships she's stolen, but apparently it's been more than a few. Um, so she's a problem, and they're there to deal with her. Now, I don't know who's there to deal with her. They make the statement during the fight that that's a lot of TIE fighters for a warlord. We never saw Moff Gideon bring that sort of firepower to bear. I would assume that we're leading up to a reveal of um oh gosh, of Thrawn. I think that that's what we're leading up to is a reveal of Thrawn. I am very curious to see how they're going to explain away the time what happened to Ezra and Thrawn after they're carried away by the Purgil. Yeah, I definitely get that. I feel like nobody watched those. I reference those a lot, and I feel like so many people I try to talk to about those things never saw that. Although Disney Plus does make it more likely that people will see it, I guess. But I don't know. Um, let's see what else. I'm trying to wait for Marisha to get back to talk about the end of the episode. But it was very cool to see TIE interceptors and TIE bombers in action. We've seen very limited use of both of those ships in live action, so that was very nice, and they all looked great. I thought they did a really, really good job with the look of the ships. That was one of the things in Andor. I thought as much as Andor looked great, I didn't think the TIE fighters looked as good as they could have. Nick, what did you think about the dog fight? So, I guess I was going to try to wait on Marisha to get back to talk about the end of it here, but that's about all that's left to talk about. Um, I do like, things I do like. I have very few complaints. My only real complaint about this episode is the pacing's a little wonky with the the way they just chose to split the episode up. I don't think it ruins the episode, but I thought that it could have been done in a better way. So I'm very curious to see when we get down to the end of this. We knew that Din Djarin actually, so I didn't. So Din Djarin has taken Bo-Katan to the covert and has been welcomed back, has been restored into the covert, into the way. I wasn't totally sure that the armorer was going to honor that. Are you back now? Cool.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right.
All right. So, real quick, I mean, pretty much, unless you had anything to add on the dogfight or the destruction of the
No, it
castle
was
or
cool.
anything like that.
I liked it.
What did you think about the end of the episode?
It was a little surprising. That's not where I expected that to. I mean, in retrospect, yeah, it makes sense that that's where they decided to go, but that is not what I expected. I did not expect them to go back to the exiled Mandalorians. And I noticed that Bo-Katan pointed out that they followed the ancient ways. That they're traditionalists basically. So that's really interesting because when we kind of got reintroduced to the Mandalorians in the Clone Wars and all of that, they didn't really practice a lot of the things that we kind of always thought Mandalorians did. So now we found out that they used to. They used to do all of the helmets and the rituals and all of these things are very traditional Mandalorian things that just everybody doesn't do anymore.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting because I don't know what to expect from Bo-Katan because I didn't expect her to be welcomed in for starters.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel less like, well, we'll talk about this real quick. Bo's flying in the gauntlet in the ship. And that was one of the things that's, if you're a Firefly fan, you probably recognized that Bo-Katan pulled a crazy Ivan. Wash would be proud.
Yeah.
No, I really like that. That was everything about that was really, really fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as where Bo-Katan is now, um, I'm starting to feel like I thought the armorer was potentially the villain. And I still think she could be. I think there's still a possibility that something could happen here in the midst of all of this that's going to. So Din has started to. He's gained a lot of respect for Bo-Katan in the days leading up to this. That her father died defending Mandalore. She is showing some, at least she's been sort of mocking the old ways, but she still showed some sort of reverence when he went into the waters. The significance of seeing the mythosaur is huge. I've seen a lot of people talking about someone riding the mythosaur, and that's gonna like overshadow the the dark saber or anything like that. That it's going to split the following, or that Din could do both, or Bo could do both, or that it could be Grogu that rides the Mythosaur. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, by all means, someone could ride the Mythosaur. I'm not ruling that out.
Yeah.
However, that has nothing to do with the prophecy.
Right.
The prophecy's already fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
That the rising of the Mythosaur will herald a new age of Mandalore.
Mm-hmm.
She's seen the Mythosaur is back. They were believed to be gone to extinct for thousands of years. The
Right.
Mythosaur is back. The prophecy is fulfilled. And Bo Katan, if she believes the prophecy, knows that something big is about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the idea that even though she's been sort of mocking the old ways, that she does have some reverence for it.
And I think it'll be interesting if I think honestly, if nothing else, she follows the rules long enough to get her footing again.
Yeah.
So the
Well,
question would be
her goal
then,
has been to unite the Mandalorians. That includes this group, the people that are following the old ways.
right. And
Uh,
so I think the question will be, will she try and talk them out of it? Or will she just buy into it enough, at least on the surface, to get their support?
yeah, there's a lot of questions as to what's going to happen there. Because she might just we haven't heard, like, she has not said a word.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she said, she's asked if she's taken her helmet off. She says no. And then, she's because she's taken the creed as a child.
Right.
So she's restored. By rule, she's restored.
Right.
She doesn't say a word. We don't know what that means to her, but she's lost everything.
Right.
And if we want to continue drawing religious parallels, which I think we need to with this show, because I think it's very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It's that loss of everything else
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes puts people back on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we're going to decide that this group is not a cult, or maybe that it's that we need a purification of this
Mm-hmm.
group and what they believe, but that they're maybe closer to correct than we believed.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot of different directions you could kind of go with this. You could go with they're a dangerous cult. You could go with maybe they're actually right. Maybe they're right about some things. I think it's going to be interesting to see the direction the story takes with them.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is, I believe that the armorer would ultimately be the villain for this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's still not totally out of reason. I think that's possible. But I think Paz Vizsla is the villain.
That seems likely. Yeah.
Um, he's
I'm sure
clearly
you've
not
heard.
happy to see either one of them, or to see either of them welcomed back.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Now, there are others in the covert that are they're accepting of Din and Bo coming back. We
Mm-hmm.
see them all walking up and putting their hands on them at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's also some bit of awe, because they've been told that the mines are destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
that there is no returning to Mandalore, and now they've been told different.
Yeah.
And I love that we don't get any words from Bo-Katan. We just kind of get her reaction with the helmet on
Mm-hmm.
to what's happening around her, and her eyes are fixed on that mythosaur on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to go some interesting places. I'm sure you heard the cousins arrive. It got all of a sudden got a lot louder in here.
I didn't, but we can go ahead and wrap up before it gets totally out of hand there.
Yeah, because it is fully proven by our children and their cousins that 6 children make more than twice as much noise as 3.
Yeah, it's exponential
Yeah,
growth.
for sure.
Um, but I really liked the episode. I thought they did a lot of fantastic things. I think that the Mandalorian part of the episode is still the better part, even though I think the other part does a lot of important things that we needed to do at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't wait to see where they're going with both sides of the story. Now, I don't know when we will revisit the Pershing stuff,
Yeah, that'll
um,
be for
but
sure.
I am excited, and I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I've had a lot of theories up till this point, um, but they just put the two people that I thought were going to come to blows together. Now, maybe that's what's going to lead to them
Mm,
coming to blows. But it also, I think, kills a lot of theories.
mm,
Not just my theories, a lot of theories on who the armorer is.
mhm,
Um, because a lot of people thought that it was someone that Bo-Katan would have known. And
mhm.
at this point, I don't know that it appears to be.
Yeah, we don't get any indication that that's the case. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where it goes from here. Color me intrigued.
Yeah. So, um, I guess that's going to do it for this episode. So, Marisha, until next time, where can people find you?
You can find me doing things on the science fictionary and of course not Radio Underground.
Oh, okay. All right. You can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. You can drop us a line at the sciencefictionary at gmail.com. Let's see what else. There was something I needed to mention at the end of this episode, and now I can't remember what it was.
It's how much you miss me.
You just left.
You still miss
Okay.
me.
Okay. I miss you. So there was something I really wanted to mention at the end of this episode, but I will be on the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast tomorrow night to talk more about chapter 18 and chapter 19 of this show.
Perfect.
So join us over there for that. Until next time, may the force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.